At its peak, the Roman Empire controlled the Mediterranean, governed millions of subjects, and projected absolute military dominance, maintaining this vast architectural network for centuries. Yet the stability of this system presents a historical contradiction. Rome began as a republic, a government defined by fierce, often violent competition among its elite. Over time, that fragmented system collapsed into a singular, highly stable autocracy. The physical arena for this transition was here, in the Roman Forum and the surrounding streets. The battle for absolute power was fought by senators and citizens, far from the foreign battlefields of Gaul or Carthage. For the men navigating this arena, the accepted method for consolidating ultimate authority was direct and merciless, the mass execution of fellow citizens. Decades before Julius Caesar rose to prominence, a general named Lucius Cornelius Sulla established the political baseline of the late Republic. Sulla demonstrated that a ruler could hold absolute authority by ruling through terror and systematically eliminating his rivals. Page 73 of Parenti's history documents Sulla marching forces into the city, implementing proscriptions, lists of enemies hunted by death squads. As shown, Sulla slaughtered senatorial opponents, 1,600 knights, and thousands of commoners, confiscating their property to fund his regime. Sulla's reign provided a clear lesson to the next generation of Roman politicians. Securing total power required systemic, uncompromising bloodshed. This historical account from page 128 details the event of January 11, 49 BC. Defying direct orders from the Senate, Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with 5,000 infantry. By moving troops onto Italian soil, he committed an act of treason and guaranteed a civil war against his rival, Pompey. The immediate reaction in Rome was panic. The aristocratic elite, well aware of recent history, fled the city. They fully expected Caesar to unleash a purge matching or exceeding Sulla's prescriptions. Caesar's disciplined legions swept down the Italian peninsula. They encountered disorganized opposition forces and rapidly overwhelmed local garrisons, taking control of towns with minimal resistance. With the Italian mainland falling under his direct control, the stage was perfectly set for Caesar to execute his captured rivals and confiscate their wealth. He had the military power and the historical precedent to do so. During his early victories at the siege of Corfinium and later at Pharsalus, Caesar captured key enemy senators and thousands of opposing troops. Instead of executing the survivors and seizing their lands, Caesar made a different calculation. He pardoned enemy leaders, released their troops without reprisal, restored their property, and allowed many to retain their senatorial ranks. This was the implementation of clementia, clemency, or mercy. It was not a symptom of personal weakness or a sudden moral awakening. It was a calculated, strategic innovation designed to solve a complex political problem. By choosing forgiveness over the executioner's block, Caesar broke the cycle of retaliatory slaughter that had defined Roman power struggles for generations. He discarded the old roles of engagement entirely. The immediate military advantage was speed. When towns and opposing legions realized they would not be slaughtered upon capture, they surrendered rapidly. This minimized ongoing resistance across Italy and the provinces, allowing Caesar to conquer territory far faster than a campaign of terror would have permitted. Beyond the battlefield, clementia functioned as a psychological weapon. Pardoning an elite enemy neutralized their political capital. If Caesar killed a senator, he created a martyr for the Republic. By sparing him, Caesar co-opted him. This manufactured a deeply unbalanced dynamic. Former enemies were now isolated, carrying a toxic residue of guilt and dependency. Their continued social standing, their wealth, and their very lives now relied entirely on Caesar's continued survival. Caesar turned forgiveness into a mechanism of control. It proved to be far more effective and far more insidious than the sword. Caesar quickly scaled this battlefield tactic into his primary public image. He positioned himself as a magnanimous reconciler, cultivating elite and popular support amid the civil strife. The Roman state institutionalized this virtue. The Senate decreed a physical temple dedicated to Clementia Caesaris, intended to house statues of Caesar and the personified virtue of mercy clasping hands. This silver denarius shows how Caesar's branding was minted and distributed across the Roman economy. By placing personified mercy on the physical currency, the regime ensured its message of benevolence reached the hands of millions, regardless of their status. This vast propaganda machine masked his transition to dictator. It framed his unilateral, unchecked power as a form of divine benevolence, rather than authoritarian dominance. But the strategy of clemencia contained a fatal flaw. While it pacified the provinces and secured the loyalty of the public, it inflicted a devastating psychological wound on the Roman aristocratic ego. For centuries, the Republic operated on the premise that senators negotiated as peers. Only a king had the absolute supreme authority to grant mercy. By pardoning them, Caesar explicitly positioned himself above them. This historical analysis from page 192 notes that the oligarchs were bitter political economic enemies who felt deeply humiliated. The men Caesar spared viewed his magnanimity as the ultimate destruction of their republican dignity. They presented their violent retaliation not as personal jealousy, but as an honorable act on behalf of liberty. Caesar's mechanism for securing peace, granting life to his peers, became the exact insult that guaranteed his assassination. On the Ides of March 44 BC, Caesar was murdered on the Senate floor. The knives were wielded by the very beneficiaries of his political mercy. The conspirators successfully killed the dictator. They completely failed to kill his political blueprint. Caesar's heir, Augustus, adopted the clementia propaganda and perfected it. He linked his own mercy to Caesar's in public monuments and on coinage, using selective pardons to integrate provincial elites, secure loyalty, and finally establish the true empire. This strategy outlived its creator by centuries. Emperors from Trajan to Marcus Aurelius invoked the goddess of clemency on their currency to advertise post-victory pardons. Roman stability relied on the discipline of its legions, but it was anchored by the calculated authoritarian illusion of mercy.